Hi everyone, just wanted to go over a few concepts with relation to environmental analysis. This week we're talking pretty specifically in the strategic planning realm and strategic management about environmental analysis, but I wanted to kind of relate it to the marketing piece a little bit and then go over a few of the tools that we use in the industry overall. So these slides are kind of general. I apologize for that. They're not necessarily specific to healthcare, but we'll look at a few healthcare examples. The concepts are, are kind of the same. So the marketing environment that a company operates in, be it a manufacturer, like something like a pharmaceutical company, or hospitals, healthcare organizations, folks that deal in wellness, like gyms and personal training sites, and these are all related to healthcare. So important to realize that it's such a diverse mix of products and services that we have in our industry that we really need to look pretty generally. We might have, and we might have folks in class that are in the service side of the industry. We might have folks in class that are in the vendor side, that are in the pharmaceutical or medical device side. So lots of places to be in healthcare marketing. So the environment is really all of those actors and forces outside marketing that impact impact the organization, impact our ability to work with our customers, to create value for our customers, and to build that relationship that keeps them coming back to us time and time again. There's kind of two aspects to it. There's the microenvironment, which is the folks that are closest to us. So, our competitors, our company itself, our suppliers, etc. So this is, kind of the microenvironment from the external side, but potentially even the internal side. And then the macroenvironment, which is the much larger realm. So demographic issues, economics, technology, political and legal, all of those types of things. So micro versus macro, they all are impactful on on our world. So some of the actors within that microenvironment, as we were just talking about, the first one all the way to the left over here, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but is the company itself. And so then we're really talking about internal stakeholders, so folks within our organization, and that's more of an internal analysis. And we will do an internal analysis for sure, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. But this week we're kind of focused on that external side. So sorry about that, small technical glitch. So obviously, like I was saying, all the way over to the left, the company, that's really our internal environmental analysis, not really where we're focused this week. We're really more focused on the external side. So suppliers, intermediaries, competitors, publics, the customers themselves, all impact us in various ways. And we want to understand that. And understand how all of that impacts us. So this is just some additional detail about that microenvironment. Pretty self-explanatory, so I won't go through this in detail. So then, some of the major forces in our macro environment. So demographics, economy, natural, environmental related forces, technology, political, cultural. And what isn't really detailed on there is the legal side. And in our world, legal and regulatory is probably one of the biggest impacts for the service side and for many of the vendors as well, and for suppliers. So really important. Macro environment dealing with things like the demographics, the people, the age. Thinking of demographics, for example, the notion of the baby boom generation now reaching ages where they're needing long-term care. And so it's increasing our pool of patients and also kind of shifting what is needed, as opposed to kind of regular well care and visits and those types of things, which is what we think of young families or maybe Gen Xers, or obviously the young people, millennials, and Gen Z. But with that baby boom generation, they're moving into a realm where many need more care than they've needed in the past. Maybe they need long-term care like skilled nursing or nursing facilities, assisted living, those types of things. So that demographic is really impacting our overall environment. An economic environment, I mean, Target is actually the example on here, but I'll give you an example from the healthcare world. We've become better and more frugal buyers in our our regular lives generally over what was the past. But now we're seeing that in the healthcare world as well. Just for an example, today I had the opportunity to learn a little more about a prescription that I'm going to be taking for migraines, and I am on a high deductible health plan. So when I go to pick up this prescription, when it's ready, I wanted to know how much it was going to be, and I found out that it was going to be $1,676 because I have a $3,000 deductible. So, that made me immediately a better consumer because I began looking for resources to deal with that. And the company that makes the drug actually has a plan that can help people that aren't receiving coverage or aren't receiving adequate coverage for some of these prescriptions. So we're seeing a shift in the way people approach healthcare. We're no longer just patients who are going to take what we're given. We are now consumers, and we're not only consumers that are concerned and interested about price. It is going to drive our decision making. So with the ACA, we saw a call for transparency in charge masters in hospitals. So meaning that hospitals were tasked with sharing a charge list of some of their most expensive items, or not most expensive, most frequently used items, top 100 charges in their facility or something like that. And, we've seen a push to get that out there so that if I'm shopping around for an MRI, and I'll just use some Pittsburgh area places, for example, but so I might look at that charge listing at UPMC Mercy, and I might look at that charge listing at UPMC Presby, and maybe Allegheny Health Network, Allegheny General. And if my insurance is going to deal with them all in the same manner, which mine unfortunately wouldn't because it's a UPMC plan, but if it was going to deal with them all in the same manner, and I'm going to have to pay a lot of it out of pocket due to high deductible, I'm probably going to go to the cheapest place, because one would hope an MRI is an MRI. Those that work on the clinical side of the world know that that's not necessarily the case, but one would hope that each organization is skilled enough to a level that an MRI would be an MRI. But now we're actually shopping those things. In the past, you went to where your doctor told you to go, and now we're seeing a shift in the economic environment. The natural environment is all about the environmental impacts of our industry. So, and how marketing deals with that. So I just, like, off the top of my head, I think of print ads and printed materials and mailing kinds of things. We're trying to cut back on that, not just due to cost, but for to help protect our environment. We kill so many trees with marketing. Each day I go to my mailbox and I have a pile of things that I'm never going to read that end up right in the garbage. Well, luckily in most places now we can recycle them, but still it's problematic. So we're looking to build a company, an organization that is responsive to the natural environment and is dealing with that appropriately. And in marketing, there are some aspects that we can work with. The technological environment. So that's obviously a huge impact in the marketplace. We're seeing a major shift from things like print ads and television and radio to social media, I can't think of the word, marketing that's based on your, like opt-in marketing. There's a word for it that I can't think of right at the second, but that opt-in type marketing. I download your app or I follow you on Twitter, and then all of a sudden I'm bombarded with marketing from you. But I've opted into that. I've asked for that. So all of those types of things that are really an important piece of our organizations. And we can even use our like this is an example of the magic band at Disney, which is, we have 2 magic bands in each car because we never know when we're going to be on property, and we have annual passes. So if we're in one car, we have 2 magic bands. If we're in the other car, we have 2 magic bands, and we can head out to Disney at any point. So that kind of technology is awesome. We have that similar kind of access point for healthcare with portals. I have my UPMC portal on my phone that I can access for information. And now down here, we have Advent Health. That's our provider generally. So, I have my Advent Health app on my phone, and it gives me access to their sites, but it also gives them the opportunity to market to me. and to tell me what they want me to know about what's going on at Advent Health. So technology has really moved a long way. Political and social environment. So this is important as we think about legislation that exists to help protect us from one another, to help protect consumers, and to help protect society. But the biggest part of the political and social environment in healthcare is really the high level of regulation. So our industry is just by far one of the most highly regulated, outside of perhaps, cable television and maybe cellular services. That seems like that's pretty highly regulated. But the healthcare industry, between state level, local level, and federal level regulation, and then also policy making by our payers, who are the ones that allow us to keep our doors open if we're a service industry side. So we are always answering to those types of regulations. And so we need to deal with that from a marketing perspective as well, and from a strategic planning perspective. It's clear for strategic planning. For marketing, you may think, well, why do we really need to do that? But it's important that our patients are comfortable and know, or our customers know, that we are in the highest level of moral and ethical behavior, socially responsible, making sure that we are operating in a compliant manner. We're not an organization that commits fraud or abuse, those types of things. So it can play into the marketing side as well. And then the cultural environment consists of different institutions and other forces in the area that can affect the values, perceptions, and behaviors of that area. And we need to be aware of, what I teach classes in, kind of general intro to healthcare administration. And one of the first questions I ask my students is, we know that it's important for healthcare providers to be culturally competent. Is it important for healthcare administrators to be culturally competent? And interestingly enough, I get a mixed response. And it's, I guess it's kind of a reflective type question, so there is no right or wrong. But my thought is, yeah, absolutely, because we need to not only deal with culture and diversity in culture in our treatment of our patients, but we also need to deal with diversity in culture in the way we treat our customers from a business perspective. So that's really important. There's a really interesting, and I have my phone here in front of me, and I'm trying to find it, but there's a really interesting case. A healthcare case that there was a book written about. And of course, I won't be able to find it while I'm looking for it. The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down. And it was a book about a Hmong girl who was kind of let down by the healthcare system. And the thing that I take away from a clinical perspective, the reason I knew of that book was because my husband read it in one of his nursing graduate programs. But the reason that it's really pertinent to us as well is that we need to make sure that it's clear to our patients and our prospective patients that we would not let a patient down like that, that we would be always aware of the culture that we operate in, and make sure that our staff and our folks that have frontline access to people throughout the organization, and not just clinical, but all aspects of the operation, know and understand cultural competency and diversity and have an appreciation for it. It's one thing to know it. It's another thing to have an appreciation for it and understand how important it is. If everyone was the same, can you imagine how boring life would be? So, having that appreciation and that love for a diverse lifestyle, a diverse workplace, a diverse community is really crucial. And honestly, being very honest here, that's one of the reasons that we left the Pittsburgh area. We found that where we were in Pittsburgh, we were not living in downtown or anywhere. We were very much in suburban Pittsburgh, and there wasn't a lot of cultural diversity or even cultural competency, I would say, amongst the people that were in the area that we lived in. So we came from New York to Pittsburgh, to the Pittsburgh area, and it was very different in New York. And now we've moved to probably one of the more I would say full, I'll use the word full melting pots in the Orlando area, because people are just from all over here, and it's very reminiscent of our time in New York. So it was it was a driving factor of us leaving the area, having that appreciation and that love to have access to and be involved in the lives of people that are different than yours is really a great thing. And also from a marketing perspective, if you are marketing to people that are different than you need to understand them. And I think that's a key thing. And also from the perspective of being able to not just market to them, but to interact with them, and for your strategy side to be able to deal with what's going on in the environment, and making sure that your company is in a position where you're seen as the moral and ethical organization, and perhaps even the moral and ethical leader when it comes to issues of these matters. So really important stuff. I do want to flip over to another set of slides here quick, just to go over a few pieces of the tools, I guess, that we can use for strategy, or for marketing and strategy for environmental analysis. So we've kind of already talked about how strategy and marketing go hand in hand, and we talked about that last week. A few of the tools that we use to assess both internal and external strategy, probably the most simple of them, and you've likely seen or done one of these before in the past, probably within this program or in undergrad or for your work or whatever, would be a SWOT analysis. So strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And I did do, I 100% stole this off the internet. I didn't create one, but what's important about a SWOT analysis, and I'll go back here for a second, our strengths and weaknesses side are focused on our internal analyses. So what's going on internally? Where are we strong and where are we weak? That's what we want to look at in the SWOT, the strengths and weaknesses. The external piece, so really what we're talking about this week, is that bottom part of this little SWOT example, opportunities and threats. So it's very much a simple thing, listing things out, and that's kind of what we've got here. I would probably shift some of these around, but it was just an example. I just wanted to show you from the healthcare side. There are certainly strengths in healthcare. Oftentimes our staff, our leadership, our location. Sorry, there's some typos in here. I didn't realize that. Our location, our commitment, our mission, those types of things. Weaknesses sometimes can be the same, poor staff or lack of funds or lack of technology, etc. But then on the opportunities and threats side, that's when we're looking at that external piece. Tech development, working with local leaders, telemedicine, referral systems, and then on the threat side, no money, loss of alliances, strikes, or those types of things from the external competitors that are dealing with us. So strengths and weaknesses, internal, opportunities or opportunities, if we're looking at this, and threats are external. So another way to take a look at environmental analysis is the Porter's 5 forces analysis. And I believe this is discussed in the book. I think the SWOT is as well for this week's work. But I just wanted to talk briefly about it. So Porter took the SWOT and kind of focused it a little bit. And so we have the 5 forces: threat of new entrants, threat of substitutes, bargaining power of buyers, bargaining power of suppliers, and then rivalry amongst our competitors. So this is just, again, an example. It doesn't look the greatest. I 100% stole it. I plagiarized it from the internet, and I apologize for that. But I just wanted to give you a quick picture of an example. This was, I think, a Wikipedia thing, so the absolute worst thing to ever use. But so in here we see things like the threat of substitutes. Oh, well, okay, instead of going to the hospital, we may have a patient that would stay home and do home care, or may try natural or holistic treatments. The threat of new entrants, high capital, only allows serious players in the sector. Hospitals are heavily regulated, some greater in some states than others with CON laws and whatnot. But so they're in some cases, the threat of new entrants isn't as great. But then when we see, for those of you that are in the Pittsburgh area, we see it's not necessarily new entrants, but it's expansion of current entrants. So, AHN's building a hospital on one side of the street, UPMC is going to be building one on the other side of the street. And that's kind of been that really falls to the rivalry, but it's not even new entrants, it's expansion, either horizontal or vertical expansion, which I don't think we talk about in this class, but we actually might when we start into the strategy, aspects of strategy. But important to be aware of that as being a threat as well. Bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of consumers. So lots of different things. And like for the consumer aspect, we had just talked about, I would probably disagree here with this comment on this analysis, because patients do have more bargaining power now. They may approach let's say they're a self-pay patient and they know that this is what Medicare would pay on this. And a lot of times now patients can go in and bargain for discounts on their services and their products and whatnot that they're purchasing in the healthcare industry. So really important to be aware of those aspects. Another aspect, and this is just a kind of a simple example, not anything that I created, but is the PESEL analysis. So I don't know that the book talks about the PESEL analysis, but I think it's important, especially to marketing, and it kind of encompasses all of those things that we were just talking about in that other slide set. So political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. And this is where I kind of like the PESEL because it separates political and legal. Because political and legal aren't always the same. We may have legal and regulatory things that we're dealing with that don't have a political aspect to them. Now, right now in our industry, they're kind of intertwined because of the current administration's dislike for reform or for the reform that was passed, the push to put the new justice on the Supreme Court. How is that going to impact healthcare reform? How is the election going to impact healthcare reform? So we have a lot of political aspects right now in our industry, but the hope is that healthcare is less political and more about doing the right thing. And that's where the legal aspects come in. Like hopefully we're able to legitimize some of this reform so that we can go full bore on it and really make sure that we're getting people the access to care that they need, getting them the coverage that they need, and then making sure that we are all operating in a legal and ethical manner and are compliant. And as a compliance officer, that makes me happy. So political and legal, I like to see them separated because they can bring different things to the table for us to deal with. But on here you can see economic, social, technological, environmental, all of those things that we just talked about. So I think that's all I've got for you this week. Obviously we've got some reading this week, and we're also working on our final project topic selection. I had put up a little bit of additional information about that in the classroom. It's really, right now I'm just looking for a sentence or two, not a lot of stuff, but I want you to be able to have some time to gather data and to be thinking about the project selection overall. And so what can you do? I'll scroll right down to it here. So what can you do for your final project? Well, you want to develop a strategic business plan because this is a strategy class, but we also want to make sure that there's a marketing aspect. And in the template of for the plan or for the grading, kind of the rubric template for this project, you'll see that one of the aspects is a marketing plan. But you can honestly choose any topic. It just needs to be healthcare related. And it doesn't have to be a service facility, it doesn't have to be a hospital, long-term care facility, physician practice. It can be in the pharmaceutical sector, it can be in the device sector, in the vendor sector. If you're if health promotion and wellness is your thing, it can be in that sector. It can really be anywhere. What I'm looking for you to do is choose a topic of interest, and so you're going to develop a strategy for them. So a new service, a new unit, a new clinic, a new a new product, maybe even a new facility overall. Any healthcare service or product is fine to address. And as I said in here, alternative medicine is included. So it doesn't mean that it has to be a traditional something that's covered under a health plan or whatever. It can be anything health, wellness, and promotion as well. And alternative medicines like holistic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine and all of those types of things also. So this week you're going to select a topic. Pretty straightforward. The next step, see, I'm getting a text from Lily about my Emgality prescription, as you guys are seeing on my screen. So this week we're going to do just the the project selection. I'll give you feedback on that. You can put it in the Dropbox and I'll give you feedback. The final plan will be due in Module 7, so that'll be the written plan, and we'll do presentations in Module 8. I've given you a few resources in here. This thing here, I won't open it because it'll take a bit, but it is a sample strategic plan from the Veterans Administration. I'm not looking for anything quite that detailed, but I wanted to give you an idea of what's typically involved in these. But then I have a couple of other little helpful tools attached here that might be good resources for you. So that's all I've got, I guess. You've got your other assignments for this week, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the discussion boards. Thanks.